Welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship, where we interview entrepreneurs to inspire the future entrepreneur. I'll be your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. So grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
My next guest is a UK-based tech maverick who redefines digital landscapes. As a black technologist, he pioneers privacy-focused innovation like Vox Messenger and Vox Crypto, advancing it for digital equality and privacy protection. Please welcome the founder of Vox, Jor-El Benjamin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. Today, I'm here with J.B. Benjamin, and heck, you are not calling in from the United States. Where are we calling in from today?
I am in rainy England, more specifically Nuneaton, which is part of Warwickshire. It's basically Hobbit country in the United Kingdom. It's right in the middle, horrifically windy, horrifically rainy. It's like Wuthering Heights outside in a blasted heath. And luckily enough, my microphone's noise cancelling is really good because all you can hear is blasting past my windows at the moment. So I would outside your window just looks so calm, so peaceful, actually bright as well.
It was not like this here in the Pacific Northwest. A couple of weeks ago, we had just a gnarly ice storm. I mean, it took us out of power for 5 days. I came home, busted water pipes, flooded basement. I mean, I am thankful for the weather today.
Yeah, it definitely seems like somebody's running the harp machine on overdrive at the moment, given all of the weather patterns. Oh, it could be global warming, apparently. It's a thing, apparently, or it's not.
Or
I have no idea.
You never know.
I don't do the science, so I have no idea. But either way, the weather really sucks, and I do wish it was a lot sunnier because, I could do with some sunshine right now.
Yes, man, we could all do for some sunshine. Now, JB is with a Cryotech winner. We're going to get into that shortly. But first, JB, give us a little background. You're the CEO and founder of Cryotech, which we're going to get into here shortly, and we'll talk about what that is. But first, we'd love to get to who is JB? Give us a little background.
Okay. Well, I was born on a council estate in Birmingham in the Midlands. So technically I'm a peaky blinder because I grew up in Bawdsley, which is where the Bawdsley boys grew up in.
I'm glad that you're giving references to this because people are now like, oh, okay. Oh,
Peaky Blinders. Just think Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders is probably the easiest. Actually, oh my God, that's unbelievable. Brum is actually on the map because of Peaky Blinders. Yeah. So if you've watched Peaky Blinders, I'm a Brummie. I'm one of those guys, just without the stabbing, shooting element and the kind of horrific Brummie accent as well. Luckily enough, I had a mother who was from Bristol. She believed in the 3 R's style of education. So I was taught the King's English, as it was once known. And I was taught reading, writing, arithmetic. I was reading Baudrillard and Descartes by the time I was 5 and 6, writing essays on Shakespeare, critical thinking and analysis of Shakespearean plays. I mean, we didn't really have a childhood as such. It was more of my sister and I were kind of more just constantly educated, literally just 24 hours bombarded with knowledge and data. We didn't get Christmas presents and toys. We got microscopes, chemistry sets and telescopes, and we better learn how to use it. So heavy focus on science. My mother wanted me to be a physicist, so I learned a lot about physics. I actually loved physics, loved quantum mechanics. It's still to this day one of my favorite subjects. But as is always the case when one has incredibly overbearing parents, you go in completely the opposite direction. So I decided I was going to be a filmmaker instead. That did not work out great because here in Britain, if you're going to get money for funding films, unless you're self-funded, it's going to fit into 2 categories. You'll either get funding for films which feature Hugh Grant or some other bumbling idiot going, it's all about love, don't you know? Or you get funding to make films which are about hood culture in it because it's about black things, yeah, boom, 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 bang, bang, and all that kind of stereotypical, absolute top boy nonsense that only represents a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of the black community in the United Kingdom. It's probably less than 0.8% of the entirety of the community represented there, but it is what it is. I have no interest in making films that fit in either of those camps. I'm into martial arts movies, Kurosawa. I'm into, classics like Kurosawa and the Seven Samurai, the Shaw Brothers, and the Bride with White Hair and that kind of stuff. That's my kind of movie. I've even written a few scripts which are kind of like a melding of that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's a whole. I'll bore the world with films that I ram down people's throats because I'm self-budgeted like Ridley Scott and James Cameron when I'm older and have made my wealth, and then everybody's going to have to like them whether they like it or not. Just like James Cameron and Ridley Scott, to be fair. After doing all of that, I realized very quickly, back in 2011, I finished my degree in 2010, and I was actually already doing PhD proposals for artificial intelligence-based projects. In fact, we have PhD proposals of mine in which I was effectively pitching Mid-Journey before Mid-Journey was a thing, kind of a thing. But I generally got told by everybody that I was a lunatic, that the technology didn't exist, that we were a century away from that kind of AI, JB. Oh, just stay in your lane, focus on stuff that's more, why don't you do digital marketing? That kind of stuff is, that's not me. So after leaving university, I went straight into the 3D animation, and I kept very focused on adaptive AI. I would love to pretend that Vox Messenger and the creation of the world's first post-quantum encrypted messenger was done deliberately. Oh, what an amazing story that would be. No, it wasn't. Like so many people like me, I was suffering baby mama problems like a mofo. I have 4 children, all by the same amazing woman. Unfortunately, not everything was amazing, so I've had to fight through court and lots of not see my children for like years at a time. By the way, that all has a happy ending. All 4 children now live with me, including my youngest son, Cal. So actually, I just didn't want to end up like all those other guys fighting through court for their children. I didn't want to end up, an alcoholic, a drug addict, a womanizer, or one of these guys that dresses as Batman and jumps off bridges claiming to be fathers for justice. I mean, I may have the Batman tattoo, and I did name my son Kal-El, but there are certain levels of insanity I won't go near. So I decided, what am I going to do? I decided to get to do an app. I built an app which was ostensibly built for myself originally, because I actually looked at everything wrong in the industry that I was not happy with in my own form of communications and set out to build something different. So that's why I chose the strongest encryption algorithms available. And the reason they're called post-quantum, by the way, is a beautiful buzzword. Don't just love it. Post-quantum. Feels so futuristic. It feels so
like a Marvel, something like, I'm going into the Marvel universe.
It feels very Disney Marvel owned, doesn't it?
Great product placement for those watching on YouTube. Phenomenal product placement.
Yes, and Disney don't pay me anything. The problem with these kinds of things is, as we've seen from Cambridge Analytica, we've seen from Facebook, we've seen from WhatsApp, we've seen from Signal, if we do our research, not one of them seems to have been completely honest with us with what they do with our data. The promise is, we will give you services for free that you can trust and believe in and protect you and your digital privacy. Yeah, isn't this amazing? But the reality is they sell it all like that to make money from ads. And these ads then just get retargeted at you wherever you go. So many of us have had the experience of speaking on WhatsApp in what we believe is an encrypted and protected conversation, talking about, I don't know, for the less esoteric of us, maybe not talking about Glock 19s and Glock 28s and stuff like that, but maybe just talking about trainers. And that as soon as you go onto Facebook or go onto Google, you're all of a sudden seeing ads for these trainers. Now, as somebody who works in end-to-end encryption, I can honestly tell you that if your data is being end-to-end encrypted, this is not possible. Just as the same as you cannot edit a message that has been truly end-to-end encrypted. Because in order for you to edit something that has already been encrypted and the key has already been set for, you would have to decrypt it, create a new key for it, and then re-encrypt it. WhatsApp are not doing that. So it's there are lots of things that gave me red flags and indicators that people were not quite being upfront. Now, because we, the consumer, know absolutely nothing about security and encryption, because we spent the longest time believing that the Zuckerbergs and the Musks will protect us, and most people do not realize these things, which are, to me, fairly basic. So I thought, right, I'm going to build my own messenger. I'm going to build it with the strongest level of encryption possible. And I would much rather, I don't know, walk with my, crawl with my bare belly across glass then give any of this up to any government or corporate entity, especially without a wallet, any form of warrant or D-notice, which are the instruments which are used to extract information from tech companies such as my own. So that was basically why I did it. It wasn't actually because I was going to do some big altruistic, I'm going to save the world intent. I just wanted to save my sanity. I would say setting out to do that and then having not one, but 3 companies now and launching not one, but 5 different products with varying user levels, I would say did not do anything to improve my sanity, actually. It has led to lots of sleepless nights, but there's nothing like seeing your products out there and actually seeing people tell you things about how it's helped them in some way, or maybe it's helped them not lose some information or help them feel a little more protected in their day-to-day life. I mean, so many people I talk to at the moment in the consumer space talk of how they feel perpetually watched. They have this overriding sense of dread almost in anything they do and in anything they say. And part of that is because of the culture we have right now. We have a culture of you have no privacy. We are observed, we are watched, we are tagged, we are tracked. We can have police show up on our front door because we say we disagree with genocide on a social media platform that we have sold on the premise of is a platform for free speech. We are told we live in a democratic society, yet we are told who we can do business with and how we can do business and in what way we can do business. These are things which are complete insanity to me. So this is the reason why we have built these products. So as I got Vox Messenger out there, and it's cool, it's fairly stable. Yeah, it is stable. And I'm actually going to be cool. I'm actually going to be proud of my product. Yes, it's stable. I love it. We have over 80,000 users in over 100 countries all over the world now.
Wow.
And we're just getting ready to release our encrypted video chat system. Sorry.
No, that's phenomenal. I mean, so folks, let me kind of just to paraphrase, I think, what was going on right here. So that phenomenal GB, yeah, I mean, one, right, to your point, Signal for those or WhatsApp, if you guys use any of these app systems, right, they're supposed to be encrypted app systems, right? You're talking one person to another. And the way I've kind of, JB described it is the fact that in WhatsApp, the fact that you can actually edit a messenger leads it to believe that that is in fact not encrypted, because it makes sense. It completely makes sense. It's like going through a firewall, right? You have to break down through this firewall and then you build it back up once you're done, and then you leave it alone, right? And so in order for you to get back to editing those things, you have to break back down to that wall. And what JB's saying is there's no wall to break down. There doesn't seem to be another wall, which makes complete sense. I think that now leads into your messenger. Now tell us about Vox Messenger. What is it and how do you ensure, because I think this is a big thing. A lot of people feel this way, right? When you're walking around having a conversation, when you're walking around having a conversation with one of your friends and you're like, oh man, I could really go for a cheeseburger and all of a sudden you have an ad on your damn Facebook, like, oh, what the hell is going on, right? And so how do you ensure that Vox Messenger has that encryption services?
Well, again, it's also partly because one of the things we're all about is transparency and accountability. And this is why we actually invite people to question what we do. If people actually request it, we will actually even show people via booked sessions how the fact that their data is encrypted in our database. They can actually see via a share screen, if they so desire, that we cannot read anything. Now, at the moment, it's all very horrifically centralized because we're having to use Firebase as our database solution. That's because I built this thing on a shoestring while I was literally working day jobs, putting everything into this. So I had to build using stuff already freely available to me. We are changing that. The version 3.0, which we're working on at the moment, is decentralized and interoperable with pretty much every major competitor. Even has an integrated crypto wallet in there as well, because we are trying to help people get back to communicating with their finances correctly. I'll give you an example. One of the biggest issues in the crypto space is how you can separate messaging from the actual financial transaction, which means it becomes very easy to manipulate people outside of these different groups. By bringing the crypto wallet into your messaging environment and platform, it means there is a direct correlation between you making a decision, making a deal, and then actually having that financial transaction with no man in the middle components to run risk of. And we're also going for financial regulation because, as you know, the SEC's just got a pardon for like battering anything that is going to conflict with centralized finance. Now, with Vox Messenger, we also have a number of features that help to protect you more. For example, you cannot edit a message in Vox Messenger. Once that thing is being written and sent, it is like the equivalency of it being hammered into a piece of stone, and then the chisel, your private key, literally just lives on your handset and doesn't exist anywhere else. And the public key, which is stored as a list for people to use as a directory, is again kept and protected. This basically means at no point can you edit that file. We also have other things. We have something called Incinerate, where we can actually demonstrate that not only is the message deleted from your handset and the receiver's handset, but actually also the database through which it traveled through. Now, this is crucially important because all around us, we have delete for everyone, yay! But the reality is it's delete for everyone except the platform provider, who maintains a copy of that for, guess what? You've guessed it, analytics and metrics. And you agree to this when you sign up to this as your terms and conditions. This is the reason why our terms and conditions, if you in our privacy policy, when you check them on our app, they're very blunt. They're not as long as some other people's because we're just going to be straight with you. If there is any data that we have to share, that we have to store for analytics, for example, at the Firebase end, which does that automatically, whether we like it or not, we declare that. We've even made it so that inside of the app, if you want to test the app, permissions for things like your microphone, your camera, storage, they are all optional. So you can actually explore and play with the app before you commit to even handing over any permissions. And we are working on how to make this even more. We're working on how we can roll this back even further so it becomes even stricter for you. We have even built another module called the Mikoshi protocol for those people who are living in environments where their personal safety and their data are truly surveyed and infringed on. So that I'll give you an example. In Britain, there is a policy of in stop and search, your phone being cloned. Now, to combat that, we have created the Mikoshi protocol, where you will actually, if you type in what we're calling a compliance pin in, it erases all of your contacts, all of the evidence, any messages that were sent between you, and it does one better. It replaces it with synthetic data. It actually replaces it with synthetic data that you could have been talking about your cattle to your grandma. And the reason for this is because if you're going to combat these kinds of surveillance systems, you cannot just stop them from working. You have to muddy the pool. You have to make these systems useless and inoperable at scale. Now, these platforms, they are often plugged into Palantir at their back end. So that's how Palantir makes its money. Palantir makes its money and its usefulness from scraping everything around it and drawing analytics from this. That is awesome at scale, as long as you're working on the premise that everybody is telling the truth. So what is ground truth in that environment? If you can muddy the ground truth, it means that surveillance systems like that at scale over time decrease in usefulness. And if they decrease in usefulness, there is no need for them. It is these kinds of, this is what we design at Cryotech. We actually have an application that replaces pretty much every single one of the current mainstream paradigms. We have our own version of Facebook called Vox Alive that has integrated AI, but no ads, so that you, the user, can create content of any nature that you like, monetize it, and sell it on our marketplace to other users who are interested. Again, without having your data ripped off for ads. We have even created a digital platform asset, which is linking all of these platforms together in a manner that is decentralized, so that even we ourselves, the platform operators, have no overall control over it as it scales and progresses. And this is because I don't believe that you have to exploit personal data to make revenue. Whereas it's kind of become easy, hasn't it? You know, if you look at it, everybody exploits ads revenue because it's the easy way to make money. But just because something is easy does not normally mean that it's right or ethical. And if I'm going to make money, I kind of want my money to be clean. I know it sounds nuts in the modern world. Okay, correction. I want it to be as clean as it can be, right? Because we also know that there's no such thing. There's this great quote in Zack Snyder's Batman versus Superman, when Superman is having to deal with the manure sandwich that Lex Luthor has so expertly created for him. And as he's standing in front of Lois, he says, "This world will not let you keep your hands clean." And that really stuck with me, because it doesn't matter how good and ethical you try to be. there is compromises, but you have to pick the compromises that you're willing to make. For example, in this compromise, in the compromise I have to make in the world that I am in, I have to get revenue generating and I have to get investment, because that is how, because this market is organized. You need users, but for you to get funding, they're not going to give you funding unless you have something, and you have to have users. And this is the reason why I've had to toe this kind of like tightrope line for quite so many years, actually. This is the reason why it's only in the last few years that we've actually done fundraising, because we now have users. But again, I wasn't going to buy users, pay for users, con users, lie to users, or in any other way try to influence them to join this to make my life easier to get to that goal quicker,
Yeah, no, and to your point, one of the things I think a great example of this in regards to tracking folks, when you visit my website, a great shameless plug, the Shades of Entrepreneurship, so the Shades of E website, so at the shadesofE.com, right? But no, like that's tracking, like a Google Analytics. I track I can tell you when an individual is live on my webpage. I know their age demographics, I know sexes, I know their location, and this is all information simply by me logging on to Google Analytics. Now, my podcast also, I can tell you who's listening, from what device are they listening from? Are they coming from Apple Podcasts or Spotify? Are they coming from the website, from the Google, from direct, right? And so I'm not saying this to scare you, but I am saying this is like, to JB's point, this is truly how it is how we have to monetize as well at some point. But you have to use it at your discretion. And I really do like that quote, this world will not let you keep your hands dirty, because I think it is a little bit true sometimes. I work in the healthcare industry, and at the end of the day in healthcare, we're thinking about, hey, we want to get to the end of cancer as we know it. But at the end of the day, I'm also like, I also need to keep the lights on. And so that is a business, right? I need to think about it from a business perspective. I need to grow volume, right? I need to grow specific volume. And so unfortunately, as much as our team, our mission, right, is to end cancer as we know it, my job is to make money to help end cancer as we know it. So,
but while at the same time kind of hoping that cancer doesn't end as we know it, because otherwise there won't be any money to
it's like your 401k. I'm sorry, folks, at the end of the day, you actually want institutions to continue to create a revenue because your 401k is directly attached to their revenue driver. Like when Apple does bad, you look at your 401k the next day. I mean, if the Alphabet does bad, if Google does bad, like it directly affects and there's like 5 companies. There's like 5 companies that directly affect your 401k on a daily basis. And so
Tesla is one of them.
Tesla's one of them.
Yeah, people should care every time Elon Musk makes a mad tweet, because if you look at your 401, it's reflected there.
Yep.
But I come from a background where very rarely people in my socioeconomic background get to benefit from a pension. In fact, most of us end up working far past pension age, especially in the United Kingdom. We'll have one of the worst pension systems in the world here in the United Kingdom, and it's one that is consistently and constantly devalued, and the goalposts shifted on, which means you're only left with a private solution and stuff like that. The reality is, given how the economy is, your 401k has to show a growth rate that is far in exceeding of interest rates and the economy. But when your 401k is pegged against certain things, it means, yes. So yeah. This is the reason why my kind of approach to life is I'm probably not ever going to be able to pension out. I kind of got the impression that, I have no intention of ever exiting my companies. I'm never selling my companies. Sorry, people, don't bother asking. Ain't happening. We've developed too much tech here that I would actually feel criminally irresponsible allowing somebody else to exploit. Because I know that the tech that we build here, I'll give you an example. We've designed a device that gives you 360-degree threat awareness as a wearable. And as it speaks to you and learns from you and learns your life experience, it literally becomes your personal AI that starts talking to you as your confidant and friend. The problem with that kind of technology is if you give it to the wrong people, they'll use it to unpick the very individual, the very essence of who we are, and they'll use it for one purpose only, to drive more ads at you. And the reality is, this kind of living, this is what's causing the sudden increase in mental well-being issues. Not only are we facing a world in which we're suffering a coder shortage, We're suffering a shortage of people that can deal with mental well-being. We need more. Whoever thought we'd be in a world where we need more therapists? And we have a shortage of them. Why? Because the very way we're living, the technology that is exploiting us is actually harming us. Bear in mind, it was only just a few days ago that the big four tech companies were all sat in the Congress, all being questioned as to why they continued their operations to continue the way they did when they knew for a fact that children were coming to harm because of it. Why? Let's be blunt and honest about this. They have shareholders.
Yep.
They have shareholders who will phone Zuckerberg up potentially and say, yo, I'm the major shareholder here. And, I'm seeing a drop in my 401k. You need to do something about it. Being a CEO and having shareholders, I know this because people will watch the interviews I do and go, I'll get a phone call. JB, we need to have a conversation about how you're discussing things. And my response is, really? Okay. This is the problem. When you allow people to get a handle on you, they will own you. If you look at the people that predominantly invest into Twitter, and we're talking about the big money people, the same goes for the people that invest into Facebook, Apple, Google. They all have an agenda. And the agenda is not consumer safety. The agenda is not enriching the lives of their end users. Their agenda is squeezing as much as they can out the product. And by the way, the product isn't Twitter. The product isn't the Quest Meta 3. The product is you.
It's you, the consumer.
Boom! And as soon as you realize that, that's when they start to get a bit twitchy. That's when you'll start to hear things about censorship. That's when you'll start to hear about alternatives being blocked. And that's where we come in. Vox Messenger, the 80,000 plus users we've got, they're all in countries where, if you look at the demographics, they're in demographic areas that do not trust the paradigm, that have been burnt by the paradigm. This is the reason why in most of my shows, I'll say to people, it really matters. If you're going to pick a product in the modern world of identity politics, you do have to kind of check who the CEO is. It matters. It really does matter. If your CEO is going to come from a certain type of background, there is a very high possibility that the alignment of their goals are not in alignment with the majority of their users, because the majority of the users of most of these products have a very different world experience to the billionaire CEO who lives in his little protected bubble. We have very different world experiences. The experience of a 13-year-old girl using Instagram and Facebook who's being stalked, predated, and is being made to question her self-worth because of because of algorithms on Instagram. His world experience is very different from hers. So given that, it's almost not their fault to some extent. It's kind of the faults of the governments that allow these big player tech companies to behave this way with no control and no reins on them. Sorry, it's all well and good to go into Congress and say, Mr. Zuckerberg, turn around and apologize. Oh, beautiful. That's really, wow, he had to apologize. Ooh, oh, damn. Oh my God. As one of the people who did have his data extracted by Cambridge Analytica, oh wow, I feel like everything's all better all of a sudden. No. And this is the reason why I'm very passionate about me putting my message out there and actually saying to people, this is who I am. I am contactable. I am available. Question me. It doesn't matter when my companies get to multiple trillion-dollar status. I expect people to still question me. Question my motives. Please do. Because these are important. And by the way, this goes into innovation. Has nobody noticed that the messaging, the way we message and communicate, hasn't really been innovated on since the very first MSN Messenger and the little Bing button? Nothing's changed. Even the format of how the messengers look. We're releasing in our next version, we're releasing in a completely brand new concept UI that visually identifies complex changes in privacy and security of all of the people that you talk to and communicates that to you visually. So you can understand instantly when a member of your group or somebody on your contact list has potentially been compromised, or if maybe they've been cloned, or maybe there is some form of attack happening to them via their cyber that maybe they're not even aware of. We're trying to make it so you don't have to be a millionaire. Security and privacy are they're they are a human right to some extent. There's a reason why there are tortures which involve removal of your privacy, because when you feel observed, you feel watched, you feel spied on, you cannot be your authentic self because you have fear that it will be used against you. And that's the world we live in right now. Everybody has access to your data. And most of us as products don't even realize what the value is of our data, what are the data points that are harvestable. I'll give you an example. The Apple Vision Pro, brilliant, beautiful device. But the amount of data it collects on your biometrics is insane. And it's most definitely something people should be very aware of and critically assessing. Because by analyzing data points about the movement of your eye, you can discover a lot about the emotional and psychological state, well-being, and capability of an individual. That is incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands. So I just say to people, please be aware. We are literally walking, talking, emitting data points. So if you start to think of yourself as a piece of data, maybe it will help you to protect yourself a little more. Bear in mind, Telefonica in France did an amazing advertising campaign in which they had a deep fake of a woman talking to the audience, and then they demonstrated in the background how that deep fake, which was able to get ID, was created, and it was created from a picture of a 5-year-old girl on somebody's Facebook page. Think about that a minute. The technology exists for us to take a picture of one of our kids and show them as an adult, and then potentially do stuff in their name. That is truly terrifying. But again, most people do not think of this because they're not aware of the level of the technology. And I hate to say that some people also think that some of the things that people will do are impossible. They are not impossible. Seriously, this stuff is not science fiction. I mean, I'm a very hopeful person, actually, for the world in which we live in, because it's a time of change, and there is massive innovation. We live, sorry, Star Wars, you're going to hate me now. We live in a Star Trek world. We live in a future, sorry, Star Wars, you didn't get it right. We live in a future that is literally run by Star Trek technology. Unfortunately, society has not evolved into Star Trek thinking, if you see what I mean. We're still obsessed on personal financial gain. We're still obsessed with doing things that lead to financial gain. And many of us pin our concept of a good life on the concept of a house, 2.3 children, 2.5 children. I mean, how did they ever get the 0.5, by the way? I never quite got that. A white picket fence, a garden, and a car. Oh, and a 401k. That's worth something. But I would say to people that I probably have less stability in my life than I ever had before. And I'm actually far happier for it. I work for myself. I've not worked for anybody else in like 3-5 years now. I do worry about making ends meet because I'm a CEO who's still getting to revenue generating, and I'm very real and I have 4 kids and they're my life. But at the same time, I'm also for once happy. You know, there is that sense that people can control this, that, and the other, but I have more control than I had before, you know, and that's good. My recommendation for everybody is to get out there and try it. Take a risk. Risks are risky and they're scary. They're very scary. I mean, I did all of this with no budgets, no money. I worked a day job and still did it. And it's scary. But I sure as hell would recommend it to people because you own it. You know, it's not like when you work for another company for years and years, like, oh my God, they gave me a badge. I worked for them for 25 years. Yay. And I'm thinking to myself, that's really cool, but you are definitely not writing no Jack Kerouac on the road style book, dude, because your life didn't belong to you. Your life was that company's life, not yours. Now, me, if you look at my CV, yes, I have done a crazy range of jobs. I've been a bricklayer. I have been a security guard. I've been senior lecturer of computer science at a major university. I've been the product manager of a £9 million project for one of the biggest corporate law practices in the world. All kinds of crazy jobs. I have never considered any form of work beneath me of any kind because there is no such thing at the end of the day. And the most fun I've had has actually been in the non-corporate world, jobs actually, and working for myself. you know?
Yeah. No, and one of the things you mentioned too was the AI and how it's able to really fake folks out. And so, folks, I'm not sure if you know this, but just recently in Hong Kong, there was an employee who was able to scam their company out of $26 million by pretending to be the CFO during one of their company calls. I mean,
Oh, no, it gets better. Sorry to interrupt, dude. It gets better. Every person, it wasn't one person in the video. There were 6 people in the call, and all of them were deep fake. I mean, and by the way, from somebody who produces this stuff, it wouldn't have even taken them that long to do.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And one of the things you mentioned too is so the folks at home, if you just have a 401k and you think, oh, I don't have a lot of 401k, it's not going to affect my money. If you work for a large organization, all of those employees, that's all bundled into one. So then they go take it to Fidelity, and Fidelity now has one big, huge lump of sum of 30,000 employees and all their 401k money. And then Fidelity then determines, okay, we're going to go put it in these different locations, right?
Yeah, they're going to mismanage it for
and
you.
And they're more than likely going to go with the Teslas and the Facebooks and the Alphabet soups, right? And with that said, again, now it directly affects you. And that's why if you go back to Warren Buffett, if you listen to Warren Buffett, one of the smartest investors in the world, what he doesn't I really, really what you're talking about, JB, because what Warren Buffett really talks about, he's not just buying a company. He actually goes and visits. So when he invests in the company, he invests truly in the operations and in the CEO of that company. So he will go and he'll talk to the CEO, he'll talk with operations, because he's buying all of it, right? And so if you're an individual investor, if you're not going with the 401k and you're actually just playing money, you're going to do like individual investing, you better make sure you know what the hell you're doing. And you better, if somebody comes like, hey, I'm a penny stock and I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to do all this stuff, and you go to one of these presentations, hey, here's a free dinner, invest in my stock, you better know what the hell you're doing. One, you better know the operations inside and out. You better know who that CEO is, the CFO is, the CMO, the CBO. You better know everybody inside and out of that business, because that's your money. And guess what? They could go liquid at any time, and you have no recourse. That's pretty much the stock market. Well, to an extent.
Not entirely correct. I mean, as a CEO, and I'm going to use the official language, I have legal and fiduciary responsibility.
True, as a CEO, yes.
Yeah, and that is the bottom line. So yes, there's so many people out there thinking that, I mean, the crypto chads are the worst for this. They'll go set something up, pump and dump, and they exit stage right. But the reality is, you can get these people. I mean, this is one of the things, I hate to say this, I've seen this so much in the crypto industry, and this is also kind of embellic of how people behave in their day-to-day life. Have you heard of it? These people who go, oh, you know what, you can't change that, it's just too big, I'm just one person, what can I do? You can do a lot. Seriously, one person can start an entire revolution. The power of the individual. We've been taught for the longest time as part of our school education, as part of the TV that we watch, that we as individuals are so incredibly weak. We need other people to save us. We can't save ourselves. Completely and utter nonsense. We can save ourselves. And if you are finding yourself, for example, those people in the crypto space who find themselves being scammed by the Matches, by the Friedmans or whatever his name was, by the Duquans and Terra Lunas and FTXs of the world, you can get to them. And no, I don't mean hiring hitmen and bundling them into the back of a car and like driving around and threatening them, although that is actually happening now in the crypto space. I'm referring to, you can take legal action. You can file a complaint with the SEC. You can file a complaint with the FCA. And by the way, it may feel like that one complaint won't do anything, but you know what? You file that complaint, it does do something. It starts the list. It starts the list of complaints against that person. Bear in mind, Barney Madoff was not caught with one complaint. He was, I'm not going to get started into how the SEC missed that one, given the amount of complaints they were given by actual professionals in the industry. Kind of like the BTC ETF debacle, but that's a whole conversation for a whole other time. Again, the Barney Madoff thing was not the result of one complaint. It was the result of many complaints. And it was also the result of certain individuals going, oh, hell no, I'm going to dig into this. I'm going to find out what is going on. And I hate to say it, we have so much of it is in all of our society. Every aspect of our society that I see in the mainstream right now espouses individual power for giving it up to the group collective, because my identity may match some other people's identity, and then I must all of a sudden fight this kind of identity group assigned fight. No, there's more important things. There's more important things, like while you're distracting us about our identity, you're stealing our data. This is, again, people need to kind of get really critical in their thinking, and I think, and really start looking at things. And again, I invite people to start testing their critical thinking with everything at Cryotech. Question it all. If it seems too fantastical, say that. And then ask the question, how does this work? What's this do? Push and prod it,
I like it. Given your focus on digital equity, we talked about the government. Should the governments play a more active role in promoting coding, AI, and other machine learning educations?
Oh, most definitely. If the government's place is there to provide steering and guidance to the public that pay them tax to do that job, oh, most definitely. I mean, unfortunately, you also need the alignment of several other things. For example, here in the United Kingdom, the laws for anything to do with any form of digital crime are far more severe than any law to do with rape, murder, or pedophilia. Fact. Those groups of people will barely ever see jail time, but if you're a hacker in the United Kingdom, you'll see 15 to 20. These are, if when you start creating these massive differences like that, it becomes also hard to attract people to the industry, because people look at that and go, hold on, what? And also, when you see that countries are changing the laws as to what constitutes hacking, it makes it hard for you to operate without you inadvertently or accidentally, as a technical engineer, breaking the law. This is the problem. So governments actually need to become way more in touch with the 21st century. I would go as far as to say maybe our governments should not be infested with a bunch of baby boomers who literally have no concept of technology and whose idea of cybersecurity comes from the Hackers movie, not Mr. Robot at
phenomenal
the very
movie,
least.
gotta say. Phenomenal.
It was a phenomenal movie, but it had nothing to do with hacking. I mean,
not at all.
Mr. Robot, if you want to learn about hacking and that culture and the technology and what it does, Mr. Robot is on the money. In fact, don't copy it too much, because a lot of the stuff in there will land you in jail, especially if you're in the United States, very, very quickly. But the point I'm trying to make is we are led by people who are not from the era we are in. So their motives, again, it all comes down to alignment, doesn't it? Their motives, their alignment is going to be very different to this generation even. Bear in mind, the governments that we have had are filled with people who are not particularly young. They're not even millennials. They're not even Gen Xers, for crying out loud. They are literally the baby boomers before us. This means if you have baby boomers who are the generation from over 50 years back, operating in the 21st century, which is about what? They come from an era where everything was about centralized governance and centralized control. And they are trying to rule over a population of people who are living in an era where the technology is about decentralization and digital sovereignty, where we are individual kings and queens of our worlds. No wonder we have a mismatch between policy, politics, and the consumer and the actual end user. And that will always remain the way, unfortunately, until we start changing some of the way in which we do our politics. For example, we need to shift from first past the post to proportional representation. We need to perhaps put an age limit in when politicians can operate, because, sorry, if you're 60 or 70, I'm just saying, maybe you shouldn't be leading a country, perhaps, unless you can pass some serious mental well-being and physical health factors. Maybe if you can do the army entrance exam, which I did, you can pass at 70. If you can run a mile and a half and do it in another 8 minutes in your 70s, cool, you can be president or prime minister. Not gonna pick sides here. You can be either or. But just maybe, if you can't, maybe you shouldn't be in office. I mean, how useful are you going to be? It's kind of like the parents that decide to have kids incredibly late in their life, and then they wonder why they don't relate with their kids. When their kids become teenagers and they're like, pass me the soup, young son.
It's a great point, but I mean, it's very true, because I think there's a big generational gap between it. And I mean, there was a stat the other day. It was kind of funny. We're watching the Grammys at home, and they said the United States president will be older than the Grammys. The Grammys is actually younger than no matter who we elect president, unless Nikki Haley gets up there, no matter who we elect president, the United States president will be older than the Grammys. Just throwing that out there, folks, just so you guys are aware. I mean, that's a horrible quote. now, JB,
that is insane. That's absolutely insane. I mean,
telling you. But
wow.
Now, JB, you kind of mentioned, one of the things you mentioned was being in the UK, having the different kind of perspective of the African-American community in the UK. Now, as a Black tech CEO, what unique challenges and opportunities do you face, especially the post-Black, the BLM era? Yeah, let's dig into it.
Oh, that is such a loaded question.
Yeah, rip off the Band-Aid, baby. We're going to be here all day.
Yeah, okay, let's rip off the Band-Aid. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so the environment in Britain post-BLM is far worse than pre-BLM, if anything, actually. If you check the statistics, all of the companies in both the United States and the United Kingdom, which pledged to do so much better for us, for the diverse minorities, not one of them have. In fact, investment in Black-owned companies like my own has shrunk to less than 5%. And that's not just nationally, that's across the whole freaking world. Yeah. Now, if we actually take a look at how the world operates, it doesn't really, despite our culture being the most dominant culture in the world as a Black culture, as it were, if you look at how countries generally treat the Black populations of their world, it is one of the most maligned populations in the world consistently. And by consistently, I mean a population index that is not permitted any form of power, that is not given any assistance into systems of structure within any form of governance overtly. Other groups of people are, but that is because other groups of people are more friendly to the empire paradigm. Now, what is it like being Black in Britain post-BLM? Okay, I would say that here in the visible racism that you experience in the street is now way more visible. It is. In fact, before BLM, there was almost a sense that people felt that they needed to be a lot more polite. But I mean, I'll give you an example. I was on the phone just in Houston train station just a few months back, and I was having a conversation with a colleague, and it got heated because this colleague had actually done something wrong. They'd actually done something fairly scammy, basically. And I was talking to him in a fairly robust manner. And this old boy runs up to me and starts screaming in my face, jabbing me in the face. Bear in mind, I'm wearing a full suit and I speak the King's English as I do, telling me that this country was so much better before my type were here. I still experience having women and men pull their bags closer to them when I get onto a train or something like that. These are everyday experiences living in the United Kingdom. I got to be honest, I kind of prefer American racism because they'll burn a cross on your front yard, they wear a white hood, and you know exactly where they are, and they don't pretend they're anything else but what they are. Here in Britain, we pretend that racism does not exist. We are living in a post-racial society. It would appear that the government didn't get the memo. Here's an example. The immigration laws have been changed, so somebody like myself, whose father was part of the Windrush generation, could be potentially deported, even though I'm a British passport holder, was born here, have 4 children here, have a white wife, and served in the military twice, and pay my taxes and do not commit any criminal wrongdoing. Why? Because they have the power to now. Am I supposed to, as a member of the British public, I'm supposed to feel okay with this? And by the way, they have banned protest, so there is no point in me trying to say anything about it or protest it, because the reality is that in this country, they have banned the one last form of rebellion, of peaceful rebellion. Now, in the United Kingdom, we have a country that is actually more multicultural and ethnically diverse than it ever has been in history. We also have a population which actually are not as far right as people try to claim or believe because of our government. In fact, the general population of Britain is actually centric left and fairly socialist. They actually generally care about each other. And even the racists who do meet, it's racism based on ignorance. And as soon as you talk to them for 5 minutes and they realize that there's a stereotype, they very quickly find alignment with you. You can find a commonality of purpose. It's not institutional racism, not like what you experience in London, where you can be a product manager of a £9 million project and you'll still have your peers put their feet up on your desk and tell you that you're too cool, which is a corporate euphemism for being Black, and they wonder how you got the job. You get being black in Britain, you'll get, if you're made senior lecturer, you'll get told that you're going to be part of the DEI committee. You're told that you're going to be part of that committee. And when you join that committee, it is made up of 2 black people and 6 angry white women. And based by that committee doesn't have any black people in it anymore. It's not great, let's put it that way. But you know what? What can you say about it? It is what it is. And other than us having a full Guy Fawkes revolution, it is not going to change in the short term. It is not going to change through elections. It sure as hell isn't going to change by people electing the Labour Party in the next election. I was BAME officer of the Labour Party in this local region. I ran with the CLP, and bear in mind, it was actually the head of the local Labour Party that told me not to do a BLM protest. And when I did put on the BLM protest in Nuneaton, and we had over 300 people show up for it, and there was no drama and violence, then they tried to turn around and claim it was their idea all along. This is Britain. It's the empire. The empire never really died. It just changed its face. And in terms of the people who became members of the population, members of the empire, it is the black members of the empire who fare the worst consistently. The other components of the empire will get still admitted to the table and made leaders of countries. The rest don't. So when people say, oh, well, it must be okay in Britain, you got Rishi Sunak. Yeah, you got a brown guy. No. Sorry, do not bundle all of us together. Just because he's brown does not make him black. He's not. He is a different racial group, and not just that. He, as a leader, is potentially more palatable to the empire because of the caste system that operates in his group, in his racial group, which is more aligned with the empire concept of maintaining a class system, because racism is actually just a tool of classism. If we break it down, it all comes down to how much money you got and who are you born and related to. Even if they are mostly crossbreeding, kind of incestuous kind of groups of people, that's what matters. It doesn't. I meet lots of peers in the space, lots of black people who go into the business world and are entrepreneurs like me, but they are very different to me because they will conform. They'll cut their locks. They'll have the certain hairstyles that fit the stereotype of what a black guy in business should look like. They'll speak a certain way. They'll pay obeisance to people. They'll bend the knee every 5 minutes. And yes, things have taken me longer, but that's because I'll be much rather my authentic self than pretend to be something I'm not. And largely in Britain, if you really want to get the easy money, you kind of got to pretend to be that which you are not. You have to hide. And that's what comes down. And this kind of brings us all very close, very nicely back to privacy, because the way in which Britain is able to know where all of us are and able to actually subject us to continuous institutionalized racism is because they have access to all of our data on every single platform. I mean, there's a reason we left Europe. We left Europe because the British government wanted to create an environment of unfettered data exploitation. And you can't do that while a member of Europe and having to stick to GDPR, which is literally one of the single best frameworks for protecting consumers from this kind of thing. So in short answer to your question, it's not particularly great. I really wish that it wasn't an issue, but when you literally see it as you're going out the street and you see how people look at you and talk to you differently, even though you've lived there for years, even though you wear a suit, even though you do not speak like hood top boy stereotype speak, you still get tarnished with it because of what you're visually displaying. And it sucks. It really does. And there are times when you think, "Wow, it's kind of hard to be proud to be British." When you see that part of being British is apparently is hating a part of the population. So, and it goes hand in hand with how everybody around the world kind of treats black people really in their society. I do not see any society, particularly in the Western world, where black people are treated at their core in their societies with any form of overt respect or uplifting. Except for the ones that are willing to play ball, kind of like the Kevin Harts of the world who are willing to put on a dress and show up at Saturday Night Live. Those guys will always get somewhere. But again, it's because they'll put on a dress and they'll dance for massa. I won't.
Yeah, no, and to your point, when it comes to supporting the Black community, I believe there's a statistic here in the United States. It's something like 98% of the African American small businesses don't actually employ anybody. Right, they're large businesses, and it really is. I think what you said is probably really telling to a lot of people, and they probably feel the same way. And it's true. United States racism is nice because at least you know who the racists are. And they're pretty honest about it, right?
And by the way, I've spoken to loads of them. I can flip half of them in 5 minutes anyway.
No, yeah.
So,
listen, I got friends in my group text that will say that they're racist, but they are the nicest. They will bend over backwards for me any day of the week. And so it's like, but there's still people like, hey, we need to make the border raw, and people need to go back to their country, and so on and so forth. But yet, at the end of the day, what they don't realize is they actually came from the UK.
Oh yeah, if the American Indians, if the natives of America ever said to the Americans, "Go back to your own country," a lot of you'd be screwed.
Oh yeah,
seriously, because everybody's an immigrant. Puritans and Quakers. So, but so are Britons though. But this is the thing: the people who call themselves Britains are and say like, "We're the Britons," yeah. The Britains actually, Britains and Insulik are actually Germanic tribes originally from the north and eastern Danube. They're not British at all. In fact, finding what is British, you actually find at its root is more Germanic and European, actually, than English. This is the thing. Bear in mind, our royal family is German. They're the Saxe-Coburgs. They just thought, we best change our name from sounding less, we'll call ourselves the Windsors. I guess the real question is, did we actually even win the war? Did we really? Fascism is on the rise. Fascism seems to be the default for most countries and forms of governance right now. So did we really? I'm kind of wondering. I think we kind of we've swapped human fascism for technological fascism instead.
Or to your point, more like governmental fascism, because at the end of the day, like you kind of mentioned, the United States population is very much like the UK, where the majority of our population, we want to do good by each other. We're centralist lefts. We want to make everybody, we talk to everybody, right? However, the way we have our voting system structured, gerrymandering is trash. I mean, they will cut out certain sections of our communities so they can specifically win those ballot races. So it really isn't a one-to-one, and everybody's like, oh, well, let's let the voters vote. Well, guess what? The voters voted last year. 81 million people voted over a 78 million people for Biden over Trump. And guess what? You guys didn't let the voters vote. You guys had your insurrection. All that shit went off. Don't even get me started. So I don't want to hear let the voters vote. When the voters did vote, that was the reaction that was received, right? Because at the end of the day, it really isn't about, who the voting. It's about winning. Right. It's about the power. It's about maintaining that power. I mean, hell, when you go through these conversations about Israel and UK right now, a lot of that funding, you think of the people that have those government contracts, the defense government contracts, another $30 billion or $1 million. Oh, they're excited. They are very excited.
We have over 2 million children in this country. We're a first world country, yet we have 2 million children who don't even have barely one meal a day. The meal they get is what they get at school. And that is going to be trash because the schools have had their funding cut because our government tells us we're in a period of austerity. Yet we've got money to send weapons. We've got money to send ships over. We've got money to do all this kind of thing. In fact, seemingly, if you shake the magic money tree, there is actually a lot of money in this economy, but it's not for us.
Oh, and there's money if it makes a revenue for someone else. So notice lobbyists and a U.S. government, lobbyists aren't there talking about, like you mentioned, public education, public schooling, things like that. What they are talking about is the pharmaceuticals. They're talking about the weapons, right? Because again, that drives a revenue, which again starts that whole cycle of the 401k. Because guess what? Those are public traded companies. You want those pharmaceutical companies to do good because it increases your 401k for retirement. So it's just really a horrible cyclical cycle that we continue to go through.
It's Freud and Barnet's designed consumer capitalism. The very concept of this comes from Freud and Barnet's. And when we look at Freud and Barnet's, we should remember that they were courted by the Nazis because they loved their ideas so much. Then Freud and Barnet's went to work for the American government, trying to work out, and then worked for Big Tobacco to help them work out how to make women smoke cigarettes, how to make cigarettes palatable when they were seen as the up until that point, cigarettes were viewed, especially with women partaking of them, as the pursuit of prostitutes and ne'er-do-wells. And what did Freud and Bernays do when they were commissioned by Big Tobacco to work out this problem? They were said, cool, we'll get young women who will join suffragette marches smoking cigarettes, and we'll make smoking seem like part of the rebellion. We'll make it seem rebellious. We'll make it seem alternative. It became the very template for what we see nowadays called, and what is it called? It's called controlled opposition. All of these people that you think are playing on the side, on your side, yay, like these womanizing people like Andrew Tate who say kind of the right thing only 30% of the time, but then use it to validate their generally really crappy personalities and the other nasty stuff they're doing. Hey, I hate to say it, right now, the sanest person on the market at the moment seems to be Putin when he speaks. And this is mind-boggling to say out loud when you think of what we're told. You know, this is insanity, apparently. But this is the world we live in. I wake up every day and I see people apologizing for mass murder. I see technologists talking about the amazing technological advances of AI, while at the same time not condemning its utility and use in creating kill lists and controlling drones and being used for psychological warfare. You know, the biggest people, in fact, in AI are perhaps some of the most you should worry about, because again, if you look at their backgrounds, these are the backgrounds of people who have never once tasted poverty or suffering. They have never once experienced what it's like to have a system leveled against you in every single move that you make in your life. But their systems, they do that. I'll give you an example. Computer vision systems are based off of 4 data sets, which have less than 1% diverse representation across all of them. Yet those data sets are used to train every computer vision system in the world, including cars, facial recognition systems designed even to catch criminals. And yes, the rate of misidentification amongst Black and ethnic minorities is huge. And it gets harder and harder for it to be proven, because why? Apparently the AIs are never wrong. We are, you know? So yeah, it's a very tricky, it does sometimes feel like we're living in a period of literal madness right now.
We're living in the Minority Report, the actual movie, The Minority Report.
Yes, we really are. I mean, I hated that film. I mean, the film was, I mean, to be fair, nobody does like these movie conversions of stories really well anyway. But when I was watching it, I've watched it, and I was like, the problem with this movie is that it's dramatizing digital fascism. It's making it seem cool. It's making it seem edgy and like, oh my God, look at that. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, think of what those hand movements are doing to your life, buddy. You know, they're going to put you in a prison cell and make you either a commodity or Soylent Green in the future. We do need to think of this stuff, but unfortunately, the reality is, if you look at most of humanity, we're kind of split into 3. We have those who would really want to do good. Then we have those who kind of really want to do bad. Both of these are the minority, actually. The majority is those in the middle, and I call them the non-aligned. They are not good nor bad. They just want to live a happy life. They're not bad people. They just want to exist. The problem with the non-aligned is, though, they're the worst, because they can be flipped in either direction. And that's a problem, because that basically means just because these people want to exist and just want to have an easy life, they can be manipulated into being involved in some of the worst travesties against humanity. We saw this with Cambridge Analytica and how 2 elections were co-opted by, actually 3, because Cambridge Analytica was also used to affect the Brexit vote. You know, when you see scientists, doctors, financial experts, and they all start repeating something from the mainstream paradigm and it follows a certain script, you have to question their intellect and intelligence. But the reality is, intellect and intelligence does not necessarily mean that you will not fall for a convincing scam. A convincing scam that appeals to your irrationality and sense of emotion, which is what all of these things do. Claiming that our problems are to do with immigrants in boats, or a mysterious disease, or potentially aliens, or interdimensional beings, whatever other crap they keep trying to tell us is going to happen next. It saps your energy, and it will make you run around like a lunatic, hoping that you'll be safe, willing to give up any part of your individual freedom just for a moment of just feeling a little warm and quiet and safe for a moment, just like being a child. Yay. It is literally a dystopian nightmare. Wow, this is a depressing turn to this conversation.
But people are pretty tuned out.
No, people are probably there slicing their wrists right now. Yeah, screw this.
They're right. Checking their 401k. They're, God damn it, Tesla, Elon Musk, shut up. So, Cryotech, what's the future? What's the plan? What's the goal? What's the next 5 years look like?
We've got Vox Messenger is already out there on Android. It is being released on iOS in the coming months. We have Vox Crypto, where you are in control of your banking. Literally directly, actually. You own your own money. Oh my God, how crazy is that? We have got on-chain KYC and AML coming, which is unlike other people's ID systems, which is actually tells you when authority tries to check your data. Oh yes, with our on-chain KYC and AML system, if somebody checks your file or an institution requests it, you get notified about it. Now, the reality is you can't do much about it, but at least you'll know who, what, when, and why, and you will be able to file a complaint against them if you find out they should not have been there. You know, this is all useful stuff. We have Vox Alive launching, which is our own version of Facebook. And by the way, we do not believe in deplatforming. There are only 2 rules with which we will deplatform you from our ecosystem: pedophilia and human trafficking. You can discuss everything else, because at the end of the day, if we, as a platform provider, I have to be as agnostic as possible. Now, if some people go, oh, wow, you know, you're not being agnostic about pedophilia and human trafficking. Sorry, people, something is just downright evil. Okay, and you don't need to be told it isn't. You don't need a government contractor to tell you it's bad, and you don't need UNESCO to tell you it's bad. You just know it's bad. Yeah, sorry, Zuckerberg, you were asleep at the wheel. You focused too much on profit. You should have been thinking about that one. You know, just be a human. Don't be a CEO. Be a human CEO. You know, I know we're doing research. We are actually doing research into a digital version of me that speaks like me, talks like me, walks like me, looks like me, but is AI me. He will do these conversations in the future. I don't know that he's going to be quite as, you know, humorous as myself at times, but hopefully he will be. Hopefully he won't be too boring. He ain't going to be dead-eyed like the Vision Pro personas, as an example. But it's going to be trained on my humanity. It's not going to be trained on Freud and Barnet's how to make money quick. It's not going to be trained on manuals of how to do marketing. It's going to be trained on a human, a real human, someone who I would like to say about myself does have a decent moral compass, actually, and does have a fairly deeply ingrained sense of ethic and morality, but not in this biblical sense. It's more on a humanitarian sense. I care about us as humans. Now, I know somebody's going to accuse me of being a humanist when Elon Musk lands people on Mars, and they'll probably look at this interview, scrape this up in years to come and go, at one point, Jean Brunel, when Benjamin was non-Martian, he was humanist, which basically means he was anti-Martian. Cancel him! We all know it's coming, you know. I mean, can you imagine what's going to happen when people start being on Uranus? Ooh,
oh, my goodness.
So many jokes, but you won't be able to say them anymore because there will actually be people there. On Uranus. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, the point, yeah, is with these things. So Vox Alive, Vox Messenger, Vox Crypto. We even have our own version of Spotify where users get paid for the playing of their music in real time using a digital platform asset, which is the Vox token, which we're releasing soon. At Djinn Technologies, my other company, we have created markerless camera sync, so you can actually synchronize lots of cameras everywhere without needing to walk around with the QR code or little balls or markers all over you. That patent has been filed. We acquired a competitor. We acquired EFEV, one of the oldest companies in the 3D volumetric space that's actually referenced by Microsoft in their own patents for volumetrics. We acquired them just last year and are starting to incorporate their technology. And then at my other company, at Gorgon Black Box, we are developing technologies for private and public security. We have Angel Eyes, where you have personal 360-degree threat awareness. So yes, you'll be able to know if there's somebody coming up behind you with a massive baseball bat who is, for some reason, watched the latest Netflix movie on incoming disasters and decided he's going to rob you of everything because he believes a disaster is coming. It will tell you, it will forewarn you, it will record it, and it will give you the information that you will need to survive in real time. We have that and so much more coming out. In fact, all 3 of my companies, to make my life easier, are now under the control of a single holding company called Akuma Engineering Limited, which is registered in Ireland, so that we do not have to accede to the British laws on giving up customer data just because they say so. No. You will come at me with a D notice or a warrant, and then I will fight you over it.
There you go. There you
And
go. Now,
I'm passionate about that for all of my customers. Hell yeah. Except the ones that are pedophiles and human traffickers, because
of course.
I execute them myself if I find them. So,
Yeah.
especially on my network. Jesus.
Now, for folks that are interested in getting connected with you, JB, the real JB, or maybe the AI JB in the future, how do they do that? What's your website, social channels? How do they connect with you?
Okay, so you can connect to me on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. Get to me on JBWB2020. I am also very active on LinkedIn. I have a fairly unique name. You Google my name, everything comes up. I mean, Jean Brunel Webb Benjamin. There ain't any other name like that. That ain't getting confused with anything else. I mean, there's a couple of American Civil War soldiers called John Webb who died, which kind of come up in the mix. Yeah, and by the way, they were fighting for the wrong side, so it makes it even more hilarious when that name comes up and you see a black guy come up next to it. Sorry, just pardon me. That's my Slack kicking off there. Yeah, so get hold of me on Twitter, JBWB2020, LinkedIn, JB Benjamin. You can also check out the websites, cryotech.co.uk, dejin-technologist.co.uk, and akuma.group. We're out. Vox Messenger, super simple. Just type in Vox Messenger. Vox Crypto, same thing again. Surprisingly enough, you type in Vox Crypto. We're there, we're searchable, and we have fairly unique names, so it's easy to find us. Also, for those of you who are super enterprising, who are able to find my phone number, yes, if you download Vox Messenger and you can work out my phone number, it's not bloody hard to find. Seriously, I live out in the open because even though I'm all about privacy, I realize I have to give up my privacy for people to believe in that which I have. If you can find it, download Vox Messenger on Android, hit me up direct. I will respond. I will talk to you.
Man, I love it. In fact, again, and if you guys forget any of this information, this is a great time to plug the Shades of Entrepreneurship newsletter. So you can actually subscribe at theshadesofE.com. We'll have all this information on the Shades of Entrepreneurship newsletter. JB, this is a phenomenal conversation. I think what I'm going to actually do, to be honest with you, folks, this is the second part of the two, because I'm going to cut this conversation into two parts. This was a phenomenal conversation, and I think we actually had a really nice segment right in the middle that we're going to cut it into two. So this is going to be a two-part conversation. JB, phenomenal conversation. Thank you again so much for your time. Folks listening at home, you can follow me at the Shades of E on the social sites. You can also connect with me on personal LinkedIn. I'm actually very active as well on LinkedIn. So JB, I'll connect with you because we'll continue to break the bread and spill the tea and make sure we do it right. For those listening at home, thank you again so much for staying in with us. I appreciate it, and have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. For more information, please follow the Shades of E on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or visit theshadesofE.com.